Ali brothers, and then we destroyed what's his name? Bitcoin. We need some new guests.
Hello?
Gail, how's it going?
Oh, what's up, man? How you been?
What's up? Are you Christian?
Yeah, I'm
Good. Are you
Christian.
Christian or Muslim?
Christian.
Awesome. Great. What do you got first?
So I guess my first question is, do you believe objective truth is real?
Nice opening. I,
No, I'm,
I
I'm
can
just
see
wondering.
these arguments a mile away, but nice one. Nice opening.
What's the
Do
what's
I
the
think there's
argument
an
then?
objective truth? Yeah, I do.
Oh, what's the argument then?
I think this is one consciousness. God will be that one truth. We can
God,
start
God.
there, right? There's a one God. Yeah,
Yeah,
one
sure,
God.
sure, sure. So I guess my question is, how do we know of this one God?
How do we know this one God? We are
Yeah.
human beings on a planet, and God, that one being, has provided all human beings ways to understand many ways, not just one way, not just one book, but many books and many ways to understand and reach this one God, this one
Oh,
truth.
sure, sure. But I guess maybe maybe you're missing the question of what I mean though. Like I guess
How
just
so?
just a clarifying question first, so we can get off on the right track. Then, would you say that, for example, truths drawn from Maya or the material world, would they be true or no?
Can you rephrase your question?
Uh,
You're talking too fast.
Okay, so would truths
You're
that come
mumbling.
from one second. Do I sound better now? Hello? Do I sound better?
That's better.
Okay, sorry, my phone's a
Yeah,
little weird
that's
sometimes.
better.
Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, so my question to you is, with the material world, can we draw objective truth from that?
Yeah, that's why I'm a Hindu. I'm trying to discover the truth and come to these objective truths about what this reality is.
Well, last I
That's why I'm
checked,
a Hindu.
at least when I read through the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, it seemed like the answer came from within, from the spirit.
Oh,
So that seems to be
that is
a
one way. Yeah, that is one way. No, you're right about that. That is one way to access the truth. But God did not just give us that only way. And that's not just, that's backed up by those scriptures, and that's backed up by the Gita, and it's backed up by the Puranas as well,
okay.
Vedas too.
Yeah, so I guess my question then is, with those scriptures, if that is the objective way of achieving spiritual enlightenment under your worldview, your paradigm, if they're being drawn through material lenses, and if the truth can only be drawn from within, from the spirit, isn't that a bit of a epistemological contradiction?
From the way that I understand your question, I don't think so. I don't see any contradiction with that. Maybe you might want to rephrase your question, make it more specific. But from the way I understood it, it's not just you can understand God from within. We are also souls in bodies, and we are operating in a 3D world, a 3D world that God created. So even in that world, God is going to give us ways to understand Him too. You go to a church, right? You open up the Bible. There are physical objects in the 3D world that we use to help us to understand what's going on around us, right? So it's kind of like an avatar in a video game, where, as an analogy, right? The avatar in the game might one day wonder, what is this place? What's going on here? Who created this thing? Is there a way for the whoever created this thing to give me an understanding of him from my position in this simulation? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. But you have to desire that and seek that before it manifests for you.
Yeah, so I guess maybe that's just to reframe the question in a different way, because obviously, if we look at these, at least the scriptures that I mentioned, because those are the only two Hindu scriptures I've read, by the way. So, uh, be just be willing to be a little bit forgiving if I do
Great.
accidentally strawman your
By
position.
the way, sorry, great. Which Bhagavad Gita did you read, by the way? Who was
Um,
the author or
it
translator?
was Eknath Earsworn, I believe is how you pronounce his name. So he's a Hindu that was born in
Yeah, I
British
don't.
India.
That's yeah. He's okay. If they're at least a Hindu, then I'm okay with it. I prefer that you read a different copy, but that's fine.
Easy
Nah,
translation.
Cool.
it
What's
was
the
the
argument?
cheapest. Yeah, it was the cheapest from Barnes and Nobles, and I'm poor, so you know.
Oh, it's a decent one. a decent
But yeah,
price.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure the other one is cheap too.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. This I bought it like a year ago, so
I'm a Hare Krishna. I'm a Hare Krishna, you know. So
okay.
I want you to read mine, you know, the
Of
ISKCON one.
course,
But it's okay. It's all
that
good.
makes sense. That makes sense.
They're all
But
good as
yeah,
long as they're Hindus.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I guess my argument then is obviously in the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, it's pretty explicit in its like for example, when trying to draw truth from Maya, from an illusionary world. That's why we're like you would probably agree with me. We're Muslims or Christians like me. We may get mixed up saying that yeah, our path is the only truth because we are drawing that
Well,
from the material world.
you're not trying to. Okay, well, you keep using Maya, so I gotta ask you to define it. Define
Yeah,
Maya for me.
Maya, I guess from my understanding, is the material world, the material, the basic matter that's used in creation.
Right. It is creation itself of the three gunas, right? Rajaguna, Sataguna, Tamaguna.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
You're not trying to
yes.
understand or draw truth from the material world. You are in the material world. And because you identify with the material world, you therefore are in a state of avidya. And so, therefore, by gaining the knowledge of oneness, this is what the Upanishad stresses, by understanding Tattvam Asi, and this is made clear in the Brahma Sutras as well, is that the true realization is by direct experience. But once you understand that it is all one, Sarvam Omkara Eva, then the avidya disappears. So Maya has little to do with this, other than the fact that because you are a being within creation, within Maya, therefore the avidya causes you to identify with the outward turned self. So once you understand the true nature of reality, then the avidya disappears. It's not that creation goes away, but the avidya of associating solely with creation goes away.
But I guess before we
Kind of
speak
like an
past each
awakening.
other, yeah, what do you mean by avidya? I guess.
So vidya means knowledge. Avidya means a state of absence of knowledge, I guess, or an absence of knowledge of the true reality.
Okay, okay, and you would then agree with me then that if we try to draw knowledge from just purely material, um, then at that point we would have to exclude knowledge drawn from that. Like for example, Jesus actually was unalived on the cross for all of our sins.
I mean, yeah, I mean, Hindus would reject that anyways. But so you know about the three states, like the three levels of knowledge within Hinduism, right? So there's three levels of gyan or jnanam. The lowest level is words or scripture or something that somebody tells you, because it is at best tertiary, right? It's only a statement made by somebody else. The second, but it's not that you can't use it. See, the ultimate goal is you're trying to understand, you're trying to get out of a vidya, right? Blah blah. But you can use these various levels of knowledge in order to achieve that state of vidya. So the lowest level is scripture, just words. Second is inference, right? So if there's smoke, you can infer that there's a fire. And the highest knowledge is that which you can directly perceive. So the Brahma Sutras say that the scriptures are like a flash,
I'm sorry, you cut out.
right? You can use it. It can't be the highest level. I'm saying so you can use scripture, you can use things within the material world, like Dharmic was trying to say, in order to help sort of spark that idea within you of Tattvamasi, or like the actual truth. You can use these things as metrics to start your spiritual journey. Ultimately, however, yes, the truth has to be derived
Yeah.
from an experience and within.
Gail, there's many ways that I can explain this to you. If you were to abandon all religions and you were to genuinely seek God and you didn't care what that religion was, just wanted to know who God was, if you actually began to dive into the religion, the spiritual core of all religions, not their material books and the things like that, you realize that whether you call God Jesus or Allah or Krishna or Shiva, or what you practice externally to worship and connect with this spirituality, it's all one and the same. So internally, you're experiencing the same one God, no matter what you call him. But externally, we are seeing it, worshiping it, and calling it different names because we have different cultures, all of which, by the way, are created by God. They're all sourced from God. So that's basically all it is. It just, you will connect to this truth. And sure, if you're born in let's be honest here. If you're born in the Western world and you happen to be white and you grew up in a Christian family, it might be easier for you to connect to this spirituality through the Christian religion. Maybe for somebody else, it's Southern Baptist. Maybe for somebody else living in India, it might be Hinduism. Maybe somebody living in Arabia, it might be Islam. But they're just different ways to connect to this one truth. And it's easier through some paths and a little bit more difficult through others because you have to adjust to the material conditions and overcome them to some degree.
Yeah, if
I'll
I could,
just because you think you said there was like an epistemological contradiction.
yeah, there is.
I would, I wouldn't say so at all, because what we do is we use duality in order to rid ourselves of the duality. So when I said the word avidya and vidya, the actual full term would be vidya maya and avidya maya. So it's that creation which leads to the lack of knowledge can also be the means through which you achieve the state of knowledge. And so all these things within duality that you use to penetrate or pierce the veil of duality can be ultimately tools or guides for it. Remember, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, if you remember Krishna, when he says, do you want to see my full form, O Arjuna? He has to give him divine vision, that which is without Maya, in order for him to experience the full godhood of Krishna. Right, and that's an ode to the fact that Brahman, and this is within the Brahma Sutras as well, is that Brahman ultimately cannot be experienced through the intellect, through these sense perceptions that are within Maya. Rather, it's one of pure spirit. It's an experience of pure spirit, untainted, right? So that's a really important sort of passage within the Bhagavad Gita. But I'd like to hear why you think there's a contradiction.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched on it earlier, how you said that scriptures, for example, was the core of the argument, of course, was essentially a flash in the pan. And kind of your last statement was actually the one that I would say was most relevant, in that you can use things that are ultimately untrue, at least in terms of higher levels of, metaphysical knowledge, such as objective truth, for example, that draw truth statements out of, which I guess that just kind of begs the question then,
Wait,
which
wait, wait,
is...
wait, wait. Stop. Wait, hold on. What was untrue that he mentioned?
Well, like, for example, he literally just said, I'm going to try to say it verbatim. My memory isn't like perfect at remembering verbatim quotes, but essentially he said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that, for example, you have sometimes, like with the example he brought from the Bhagavad Gita, obviously the vision that Arunja, I believe that's how you pronounce the name, had would not be able to actually perceive. What was that? Arjuna, my fault. But Arjuna would not be able to do it, so he had to get divine vision. And
no. In the Bhagavad Gita, okay, God incarnate is giving Prince Arjun various different ways to understand him. So he first tells him, why don't you try karma yoga? Why don't you just focus all your activities, since you're a warrior and not a priest, you're not a saintly person, not a very spiritual person, and that's not a very convenient life for you, because since you're literally at a war here, a war is about to start. Why don't you just focus all your activities and give all your activities to me? And by doing that, you will attain salvation. So you don't have to be a priest. You can just do it through your own occupational path of being a warrior, by just doing your duty. Kind of like a United States Marine Corps veteran who goes to war and doesn't think of anything other than their duty. Okay?
yeah.
So, okay, it's kind of like that. And then Prince Arjun says even that is not convenient for him. So then Krishna gives him another way to understand him. So God is giving him multiple different ways to come to him. And then he says, why don't you, do Gyan Yoga, read the Hindu scriptures, study and gain intellect about God. Once you do that, you will gain your salvation, because once you understand the truth about reality, there's no reason for you to be here anymore. And then Arjun says that even that is not convenient for me. So then he goes on to the next stage and says, why don't you try this now? Bhakti yoga, or focus on a particular path, or why don't you focus on meditation? He said, none of these are working for me. So finally, Krishna says, well, then Krishna actually shows him the universal form eventually and says, here's the full form of me. I'm giving you this mystic vision to see me in my fullness. Because Arjun asks him, basically, how can I remember you? How can I understand you? How can I know you from my position? So from his position, you can see that Krishna says, I am the source of everything. I'm the source of all material spiritual worlds. I am, the source of the stars. I'm the source of the universe. I'm the source of this entire material universe. Everything emanates from me. Everything is really essentially a part of me. And he goes on to very poetically. I can pull out this. I have it in front of me right now. I can pull it out and we can go over it. But the point is that Krishna is giving him all kinds of ways to connect to him. Okay, so giving him the mystical vision is just another way for him to understand this one truth. Okay, and then finally, then Krishna says, why don't you just directly surrender, abandon all variety of religions and just directly surrender to me? That's Bhagavad Gita 18.66. Okay, so he doesn't need to see that mystical vision, but God even offers that too, if he needs it.
Yeah, so
That's also, there are many meanings for why Krishna gave him that mystical vision of himself, because he wants to show him that he's the Almighty God, and that no matter which God you worship, no matter how you worship, you're always worshiping him. No one else can be ultimately reached. So whether you're calling him Shiva, whether you're calling him Shakti, whether you're calling him by a different name, there's only one God. All paths lead to him. And in the verses before Krishna's universal vision is revealed, Krishna says that all paths lead to him, that he's the source of all beings, that he's the father of the universe. And Krishna has already stated, even prior to that whether you worship him in the non-physical form, in the impersonal form, or the personal form, it won't matter. All paths lead to him.
Yeah, so
He's the source of everything.
Yeah, well, I guess, again, that still doesn't answer my question, though. If the truths that we draw purely from Maya
Clarify your
are...
question.
Yeah, like I said before, if the truths you draw purely from Maya, purely from the material, purely from creation, are false, because they...
No, wait, hold on.
You're
I think your
drawing.
question is... Wait, hold on. Your question is so
Yeah,
confusing because
it's
you're
it's
trying
not...
to say
It's,
that we're driving truths from untruths. What are you
yes, you are.
describing as untruths in the material world that God created?
Well, I mean Maya, for example. I mean the religions such as Christianity, for
What
example,
is
would
wrong
be
with
untrue.
Maya?
What is wrong with Maya? Well, I mean, if Maya is
You
ultimately
don't think
just
that this is a
creation,
simulation?
well, let me make the argument. I let you go on for multiple points
Yeah,
for
All right, go ahead.
diatribes.
I'm gonna still talk to you about this, about why you don't, because I already know your entire theology. This is a testing ground for you to become or surrender to Jesus. End of
I'm
story.
sorry,
If you
you
don't
cut
do
out
that, you're
there.
gonna burn in hell forever.
You cut out there.
This life, according to you, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You're good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
good.
So, right. So then, as a Christian, this is a testing ground for you to discover Jesus and surrender to him. And if you don't do that, you basically failed in life. You're going to go to hell at the end of your life if you don't do that.
Well,
So
this is completely
this
unrelated
is
to
a
my point, though.
simulation. Wait, it's completely related. It's absolutely
No, it's
related
not related. You're
because
changing the
it's the same
subject
thing.
because you have an
It's not that, no.
epistemological
Maya is
issue.
Maya is simulation.
Yeah,
This is
and
the
if it's a
world that
simulation, that means it's not true by
God
definition.
created. But
Yeah, you're
I know
trying to
why you
get
think
out of
that there
it.
are
I
things that
don't
are
understand the
untrue in
whole
the
point.
universe.
Here's the deal. This is like a really, I've heard this from Orthodox as well, Orthodox Christians. I think they like severely like misunderstand the idea of Maya. Like, yes, if Maya is a simulation, according to what Dharmic is saying, then the whole point is to try and get out of it. Now, getting out of it, getting sucked out of the simulation is not an easy thing to do. You use various tools, but it does not mean that everything understood within the simulation is inherently false because you're within the simulation.
Then why
And I
do
think
we
this
have
is
to
where
get out
you're
of it
going
then?
wrong. Because as long as you're attached to it, you fail to perceive the true reality, and therefore you stay within it. It's not bad. It's not necessarily bad to. If you look, and this is why you have to study various Hindu traditions. If you look
Gail,
within Traika
yeah.
Shaivism, they like it. They say it's life is like a roller coaster. You can stay within this Maya for as long as you would like to. It's up to you. There is no inherent idea
There's
of
no eternal hell.
having to leave. That's all. That's what the
Right.
issue.
There's no
Yeah, but
eternal hell. There's only reincarnation and heaven. Wait, Gail. So it's confusing. The reason why we're having a problem is because you believe this yourself. You believe this. We're saying
no.
get out of Maya. We're saying get out of Maya. I can just rephrase that as salvation, if that is satisfactory for you, because
I
even though we
don't hold the
don't
same
say
belief.
that, even though we don't say that in Hinduism necessarily, that is actually referenced in our Hindu scriptures too. This idea of salvation is there, not exactly explicit, but it's
Dale,
it's
did you say you
definitely
were
there.
Muslim? Did you say you're
No,
Muslim,
no,
Dale?
He's a
I'm
Christian.
not Muslim.
He's a
I'm not
Christian.
Okay,
Muslim.
okay. Well, within the Abrahamic faith, like, I mean, this is found more, and this is how it obviously finds its way into Islam, but within the Gnostic idea, it's very similar. But within Islam, it's prevalent that this dunya is cursed. There's a hadith of Muhammad that says that only Allah is real, that this dunya is false. They have anything to do with Gnostic tradition in the West has like heavy influence of this idea of Maya. I would say it's kind
Yeah,
of like
but
tainted.
But I don't hold that view. I hold that creation, that God's creation is actually real, and that it's not just some sort of like weird
That's fine.
trapper.
And you know who else does?
No,
God's creation is real is a Vishishta Advait. This is why I urge you to study like various perspectives within Vedanta that will do expand, like it'll expand on the Upanishadic truth, because the Ramanuja, who's the proponent of Vishishta Advaita, he holds the same. He holds, since Brahman is real, as a result, this creation is real. He doesn't hold the Adi Shankara belief of this being an unreal creation.
Yeah,
So
I
there's
guess.
various.
Yeah,
So
the reason, okay, but I get it now. The reason why Gail feels like we're taking truths from untruths is because your core Christian theology believes that only Christianity is the truest religion and all the things in it are true and everything else is wrong and false. So when you come from that perspective, that limited perspective, it's hard for you to understand that there are different ways to perceive the one God, because for you, the one God cannot be perceived through any other path or any other way. That's why somebody living in Japan is basically screwed if they were born into a Shinto religion. They're done. Unless some Christian out of his, I don't know, God's will or his random will just manages to fly over to Japan and convert some people to Christianity, he's done for.
yeah, but
So
that's not relevant to my argument. Firstly, secondly, just to
it
address
is
that real quick,
relevant to your argument.
it's not relevant. It's not
It's
relevant.
relevant. It's the
It's
same
not
thing
relevant.
because you're taking
Let me make the
you believe
argument.
that
Let
there
me
are
make the argument back.
untruths,
Stop.
and we're
Let me make
making
the argument
truths from
back.
untruths. Go
Yes,
ahead.
but that is your position, because you and your co-host have said this is a simulation, and if it's a simulation, then by definition it can't be true. It has to be untrue. It has to be false.
Not in that sense. No, 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 no.
Not
literally
in
what
Not
that
in
I
that
sense.
sense.
said,
Not in that
you have
sense.
stuck on to one very, very like neo Vedanta idea of Maya. And so I highly recommend you to read the Upanishads or the Gita with a bhashya, with a commentary of a particular Vedantic school. I would recommend go look up the various schools of Vedanta, because they're the ones that philosophically and epistemologically will expand on this idea of whether it's a simulation, whether it's not necessary that all of us hold to this, and you have to realize that. And this
I
is the thing. And even if it is a simulation, again, you got to realize that all things gathered, if you gather information or knowledge within a simulation, you can come out with that, with knowledge of it. It's not necessary because it's a simulation that
Right.
all things within it are false. This is just simply not how
Exactly.
empirical data works yet.
Right. So exactly. So we are all in the same one simulation that God created. And it's not that you're trying to say that the simulation is false. It's an illusion.
Yeah,
So
it's an illusion.
your understanding, is, oh, the whole thing is false. And so how are you coming to a conclusion? It's God who created the illusion for us to exist in this 3D world and to gain understanding through it. Now, there are some people who don't want to do that. And the simulation itself is a universe that God has created. And God is an infinite creator. This is not just the only creation He's made. He's made other creations too. And for those, He can get out of that. Someone who's living in the other simulation can get out too, once they begin to discover the truth and want to come to the truth. So in whether this simulation, hypothetically other simulations, there are many ways to come to God, to get to heaven. Okay? It's not
Yeah,
that the
but then
simulations, it's an illusion, therefore everything in it's false. Because if that's true, then even Christianity is false. How do we know what's true? We don't know what's true. Then we
no,
just have to go to a very limited
like
scope and just say,
Exactly.
whoa, don't mischaracterize me.
we're
Like
going to
I've
go
said
to what's
before, like I said
you're
before,
saying
I
your
hold creation to be real.
argument.
No, that's not my argument though. You're strawmanning me. What I said is I hold creation to be real. Your worldview holds that this simulation, that this world is a simulation, and that the entailment of that has to be false. Because simulations, just by definition, they're simulations, not actually reality. So the logical entailment of that is the conclusions drawn from the material world, from the Maya, from creation, are false by definition, by entailment.
No, this is also a real world in that sense, right? Because we are existing in this world. It's the only world that we know. We don't know of any other world. And since God is the underlying truth of all things, although we are living in this 3D world within the material bodies and trying to understand the 3D world through our material bodies, it doesn't mean that it's it's ultimately false and everything in its fault, because that's true by your definition. I shouldn't study Christianity. I should study anything. I don't know what the truth is, and God doesn't have any capacity to try to get the truth to me.
I completely disagree with that statement.
Right,
I
because
think
so that because you believe that in this world that God created, which maybe you don't want to. Do you want to call it a simulation? Is that offensive to you? Do you find that problematic by calling
whoa,
this a
whoa, whoa, whoa,
simulation?
whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not offended. I'm not offended. Don't worry about that.
Fine. Do you call it? Do you think it's problematic to call this 3D time space reality that we live in a simulation?
Yeah, I mean, quantum is getting to this idea as well, that at a quantum level, we're getting to like nothing is absolute, nothing is in an actual state.
Well, I mean
Um,
that's kind of an absolute truth statement
well,
then
no,
you're
but
making.
that's the simulation that we're discussing, that the fabric of this creation ultimately isn't, and that's how we're talking about it. So I don't really, again, I feel like you have a
So
very tainted idea of Maya that comes from. I've heard the arguments before, especially from the Orthodox. I don't know if that's what you are, but I think y'all need to really actually go learn what Maya is and study the expenditures on it within commentary and understand what it means, because I feel like this is a straw man of the entire concept of Maya. It's not your fault. You've been really respectful, so I appreciate it. But I'm just saying.
no, well we've talked before, Juke. It took me a minute
One
to
thing,
recognize your voice because the profile picture changed. No, we've talked before. I've been on Sammy's
Okay.
live actually debating
Okay,
Muslims,
but
but
I'm shocked. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Blissful. Did you want to say something?
I'm gonna start Nityananda, and
Namaskar.
so here's the thing, Gail. Would you say that God in the Bible ever pulled a Maya on creation ever?
what do you mean?
Well, it's
Like, what do you mean by
interesting that
like pull a Maya? I guess an
on an illusion on mankind.
illusion.
Yes, an
Uh,
illusion.
I'm not really sure how relevant this question is, but I guess just to
Yes,
give
it's
an
true. He did.
Did he or did he not? That's what I want to know.
yeah. I mean, like for example, in like Second Chronicles, either First or Second Chronicles, obviously that's with David, for
Yep.
example, with the census, where he sent Satan. The
There was never a time before that.
huh? No, I'm just
There
giving an
was never a
example.
time
I'm
before.
just giving an example of what you mean.
Okay, so like for example, we can go back to Genesis, and when you look at the Bible, Adam and Eve, they didn't know that they were nude, right? They didn't know that.
Yeah.
But when
So
they ate from the tree, they were aware. So what they're trying to tell you is that and remember what the serpent said, that they wouldn't actually die, that they would have a spiritual death, right? So it's like it's the same kind of idea. Like we live in a material world, but we get so caught up into the material world, and that is the delusion. The delusion in a way is innately distracting from who we truly are, which is in essence, you might call it a soul. For us, we call it Atman. And our whole journey through life is to basically reach moksha. So it's to actually dissolve into oneness.
Dude, can you mute notification? Can you, Darwin,
Oh,
or can you do me a favor and mute notification? Sorry, Blissful.
yeah.
No, you're
You know
right.
what? Let's just mute that guy. 1 second.
These people like
1
live
second.
to just like rage bait, probably like a Salah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But
I was
but
gonna say
that's
something.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say something regarding the simulation thing about God, you know, deceiving people in the world. Because even as a Christian, you still believe that this world isn't completely. Wait, hold on a second. Is heaven? Are you what kind of Christian? I'm confused. What kind of
I'm
Christian are
Catholic.
you?
I'm
Do you believe that
Catholic.
heaven is right? But do you believe that heaven is going to be on earth, or do you believe heaven's going to be a different place?
I think heaven it's kind of laid out. You have like the city of God, obviously in Revelations with stuff like that. But I do believe heaven is a separate place.
But you see why I'm asking that? Because there are some Christians who believe that heaven is on earth, and that's why you want to
Yeah,
believe. When
the
I say that this world is a simulation, it's sort of problematic because you think that. I mean, if you think that this world is the real world and that it's the only one that exists, then that would make sense. Why you don't think? But I mean, so you said there's a heaven now. But wait, are we going to come back here or no?
I mean,
According to your theology,
I'm gonna let you know now. I'm not well versed in eschatology. I'm not really the guy to talk about that. So I wouldn't
because
be
there
able
are
to give you a
some
good
right.
answer on that.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. But there are some Christians who will say that when you die, you go to heaven, and then when Jesus comes back to earth, and then we're all going to come back again, and then there might be a judgment
Are
day,
you?
or depending
Yeah,
on
are
what
you
denomination of
talking?
Christianity you believe in.
Are you talking about like the preterists, the people who like say that revelation already happened? They're
Well,
the
no, it's gonna happen.
well, no, there's actually a group of Christians that actually hold that revelation already happened in the first century, or that goofy side tangent. It's not relevant.
So you have
Um,
like Pentecostals that believe once like Jesus comes back, everybody who's in heaven gets a celestial body, and then they come back to earth, like or heaven somehow merges with earth or whatever. It's like, you know, it's kind of like what Dharma's saying. Like, there's so many different people who say different things.
yeah, but I would say then at that point, like before, like I mean, this whole conversation is a discussion of two people who have, or more than two people, obviously, but two different sets of ideas which are clashing with each other, two paradigms which are clashing with each other, and that's going to be the same thing with really any religion.
Yeah,
Obviously, Islam has competing uh,
I agree.
traditions. I'm sure even
Yeah.
Hinduism. I'm sure there's some Hindus out there that probably are hearing what you're saying, are probably like, this guy's nuts. He's not one of us, you know?
Well, the
Uh,
difference is,
Not
go
exactly, not exactly.
ahead.
But we can get into that. See, in Hinduism, there's only one being, Brahman, and you can either believe in Brahman or deny him. That doesn't necessarily mean that we believe in different things entirely. You can be an atheistic Hindu, you can be an agnostic Hindu,
No,
but
I'm aware.
that's only a Hindu who denies Brahman. So Brahman is always involved in this reality, in your theology, no matter how you look at it. It's just there are different ways to perceive it, kind of like art. You know, we all can look at the same one painting, but have a different interpretation of the painting.
Yeah, and I guess my
Last
last
point.
comment, because I am
Yeah.
hungry and I have to
Awesome.
grab
Yeah, I
some
want to
din
bring
din.
some other people on too.
Yeah,
So
so I guess my
last
last
comment.
question, or two questions actually. First question, did you have fun in this conversation at least?
I did. I appreciate it. Thank you,
Okay.
Gail. It was good.
And
All
then the
right.
second
Thank
question
you.
is, I see your username is Dharmic Lawyer. You think I could make a good lawyer eventually?
You know what? You sound like one, so maybe go for it, bro. Go for it.
Okay. I mean, I
Make it
would,
happen.
but it's like too much work, you know? So I'm not sure if I want to.
Yeah. Take your LSAT. Check it out. See
Yeah.
if it's for you. Yeah.
Anyways, I know we
All right,
disagree
brother.
on most things, but God bless you. God bless your
God
family.
bless
God
you.
bless.
Don't
Yep.
do it, Gail. It's a trap. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
I'm not. I
There's a
was
lot
just
of work.
joking. But yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of work, but anyway.
Yeah,
Well,
no.
I appreciate it. God bless you, girl. Thank you very
Yeah.
much for coming on.
You too.
I
Yeah, no.
appreciate it. God bless you, girl. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah.
Let's bring somebody else on, yeah?